gotta make sure you feel the energy. How to use a webinar to sell more software. Maybe you are frustrated because you have a bunch of people signed up, but they didn't buy the product. Maybe you have a newsletter. You've done like a ton of blogging and you've got a bunch of people in a newsletter, but they're not using the product. Or you have a need to pre-sell the software to fund your growth. If you're bootstrapped, this video is for you. I want to show you a way to essentially create a ton of value for potential customers and have them buy in bulk, especially from a point of pre-buying 1 year, 2 year, and even 3 year contracts using a leverage approach in a webinar. It's something that I've been doing for a long time. And it's funny because like when I first started, I was horrible at it. My first webinar ever, I remember my buddy Lewis Howes came over to our office in San Francisco. We were building Flowtown and he's the webinar guy. And he was like, webinars, webinars, webinars. And I was like, yeah, webinars. He's like, massive action, do webinars. And we were like, yeah, we're gonna do webinars. So we like took some of the emails on our newsletter and we signed them up for a webinar and I was gonna do a marketing thing and I did it. And at the end of it, no sales, nothing, zero happened. And I know why. I didn't have any framework, any training, any process. I just said, I'm gonna do a webinar, at the end I'm gonna make an offer. What I'm gonna share you instead in this video is a very detailed structure and approach that I've used to help hundreds of my clients use webinars to sell software. If you're familiar with Salesforce or Lead Pages or SEO Moz or a ton of companies in the B2B SaaS space, they all use webinars to enroll clients into their product. Eventually, with my company Clarity, figured out how to do it. And since then, I had one of my webinars do $450,000 in sales. So it can work, it takes practice, but I'm gonna give you the bones and the structure to make sure that when you get to the offer, everything else before that aligned to get the person or the customer enrolled, and then also how to deal with Q&A. So there's 5 core steps to an incredible high converting webinar. The first thing is, how do you start? You just start with an intro, right? So I like to have fun with it. My webinars, I like to play music. I like to ask people where they're from and how's the weather. Those are 2 of the favorite things people love to tell you about them. And just start the conversation going. Kick it off. Make sure you build it interactive. Even though it's one-to-many, maybe you're broadcasting your video, maybe it's just your slides, there's still a sense of, I want to know that somebody on the other end is responding. So right off the bat, set the stage, talk about the agenda, and then ask people to interact, asking those 2 questions, where are you from and how's the weather? They pop it in there and just welcome them to the webinar. John, Mary, Lisa, welcome to the webinar. We're gonna kick it off and we're gonna go in. So that's the first part, the intro. The second is the story. Now it's not any story, it's actually called the expert story. It's your story that positions you as an expert. Whatever you're teaching, okay? Let's just call it 3 points. 3 strategies to increase your marketing. Whatever the value is your product offers, so you have a software product, whatever problem it solves, you want to do a webinar that solves that problem through the content. So if you have an HR recruiting platform, your webinar should teach people how to hire better. If you have a Instagram marketing tool, then you want to teach people how to do better Instagram marketing. So let's just call it 3 things. What you want to start off in the story is teach people how you learned how to do it. Maybe you started off on Instagram and you realized that it was an up and growing channel and you wanted to do it and you spend 100 hours in a 3-month period and no results. And you just tried. And maybe you went on a journey. Maybe you went and you read all the books, you talked to some experts, and then finally something clicked and you learn how to unlock the power of Instagram marketing, and that becomes the 3 strategies that you're gonna teach in the webinar. So you wanna spend about 25 minutes on the teaching stuff, but about 5 to 10 minutes on the story. So you start with the intro, go to story, and then finally the third is the framework. And the framework, I say 3 things that you wanna teach, but here's the cool thing. If you draw, okay, and this is like super simple, okay? A triangle. If you have 3 things and you draw a triangle and you go boom, 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 all of a sudden now it's valuable. Okay, this is a game changer. If you're building any kind of training material and you don't take the opportunity to do a triangle, a square, or a circle, and like think about it, if you had 4 points, 4 strategies to increase your recruiting process, you could just draw a square and then put it into a grid and call it a quadrant and have it called the recruiting quadrant. And these are the 4 things that you need to know to just dominate in recruiting. It's that simple, but I write framework because if you don't have a process, then people don't value it. If it's just like 3 random things, it's not as interesting as some kind of diagram. The way I think about it is when you draw, it draws people in and they're gonna value it and appreciate it more. And then all of a sudden they're like, man, this person really is an expert at this information. Then the fourth part, and this is the magical one, is the offer, okay? And when I think about the offer, I think about the turn. So ideally what you teach in the webinar gives people a result, gets them a result, but it's done in the hard way. So whatever your software does, whatever problem it solves, the webinar content teaches people to do it manually. Maybe it's a spreadsheet you give them, maybe it's the process and like step 1, you do this, 2, 3, 4, and they're like, wow, that's amazing. And then you go, hey, I just taught you this way of doing it, and I think we both agree that it's really powerful and valuable. And they all go, yeah, that's great. I said, would you like to learn how to automate this? And that's called the turn. You introduce a new problem that it takes forever to do that process, maybe 5 hours a week, and you have a software solution that could automate it for them. And I just ask, hey, would you like to learn more about a solution that could automate this for you really quick? And everybody's like, yes, please, please, please. That's the turn. New problem, takes a lot of time to do this. Agree. New solution, your product. And that's when you start diving into the specific offer. Now, there's 7 key characteristics of a great offer, but the one I really want to dial in and what makes it different, why should people buy on the webinar versus any other time? And that's called add-ons. Some people call them bonuses, I call them add-ons. There are 4 add-on types that work incredibly well for software founders using webinars to sell their product. The first one, and you want to think about it kind of like a supplement. You know, if I think of like people training, lifting weights, maybe your product helped them train, kind of give them exercises in a schedule. The supplements, you know, normal supplements would be like vitamins and whatever. It's the things that they would need to be even more successful or where they would get hung up. So these 4 add-on types are critical to make the offer irresistible, okay? So the first one is a done-for-you offer, okay? And you can do this for like the first 10 people. Maybe it's actually assigning one of your product specialists to the customer for a 3-hour free strategy and implementation workshop. Values $1,500. You're gonna add that as an add-on. So the done-for-you bucket is one of the key areas that I think a lot of customers would find extreme value that wouldn't be otherwise available if they just signed up for your product. And you can add that as a specific thing and maybe only to the first 10, right? So you create a sense of urgency. The second one is a digital course, some kind of training. Maybe you created a way, you know, you take the webinar and you expand on it. Maybe there's these other facets of it. Whatever somebody would get stuck in implementing your product, maybe you have a digital course and it's a $500 program. And for people that enroll on the webinar into your product today, you're gonna give them that as a free add-on to the total package, right? So you add that. The third thing is templates. You know, when I think about project management software, accounting software, marketing tools, the biggest challenge that I'm always gonna run into is what should this look like? How should I structure this? What's a best practice? Just tell me how to do it. I don't wanna have to figure it out. And if you already have, you know, the best templates based on your experience working with hundreds of customers that you know work, and you add that as a bundle and an add-on to the offer, that's got incredible value. So you set a value of that and you add that to it. And the fourth thing is if you have other tools, okay? So, you know, it's easy if you're at salesforce.com and you're like, well, if you enroll in our CRM product, we're gonna throw in our support software at a discount or whatever. Or, you know, I know Lead Pages offers Drip. They just bought a product called Drip, and you can get Drip at, you know, for 90 days for half off, or, you know, $20 trial, whatever it is. But they have other products they can sell. If you don't have that, ask yourself, what other software exists in my space that I know a customer uses alongside mine? So maybe you have, like I said, Instagram marketing tool, and you know that people that use that also have a need for an email automation software. So you could actually go to a company that has the email automation and say, hey, I'd love some kind of discount code or some kind of bonus that I could, you know, get that's exclusive to me. So maybe it's an affiliate thing and you just pass that along to the customer. And you add that to your offer. So, you know, a lot of people that use my product also need GoToWebinar. So what I did is I reached out to GoToWebinar, and I'm able to give it to you at half off the retail price, but only for those on this webinar that invest in my software. And that is a great way to fill out the 4 key add-on sections to the offer to make it irresistible. Now, the 5th part to an incredible webinar is the Q&A. And this is where the magic happens. And the reason why is when you get to questions, yes, they're gonna have questions about the content and the structure and maybe some other things in the webinar, but for the most part, they're gonna ask questions about the offer. Hey, is there a 30-day guarantee? Is there a way for me to invite people on my team? So they're gonna talk about your product. What you wanna do is pre-seed based on previous webinars or Q&A, FAQ, frequently asked questions. Could be about pricing, features, setup, time invested, whatever it is, and you can pre-set up 5 to 10 questions that you know that your customer is going to be asking so that you can seed those in the Q&A. So you can say, John asked. Now this is not a lie, it's not misleading because John did ask, just not in the webinar, but I didn't say that. I'm saying, hey, I'm getting a Q&A. Oh, John asked, can I invite my team member to collaborate around the reports? Great question, John. Here's how that works in our product. And you can actually, if you want to go ninja, open it up, show the software on the webinar and walk people through how incredible it is. That's next level. A lot of people are a little iffy doing a live demo, but that's what I would do. And you could just have those 5 to 10 frequently asked questions preceded so that as people ask questions live, you can go to one live, one seed, one live, one seed, and doing that will help overcome some of the objections people have on the webinar, and they're eventually going to buy and pre-buy, and this is where the offer comes into play. Give them a reason to buy a year, 2-year contracts of your software, and that'll help fund, especially from a cash flow point of view for you bootstrap founders out there, the growth of the business. Webinars are one of the most powerful conversion tools to scale your sales process using some kind of paid lead gen to a webinar, offer of your software. I've had many of my clients get to $1 million+ in ARR, annual recurring revenue, in months because they were able to leverage the webinar framework I just shared with you guys. So I want to ask you, leave a comment below and let me know what is the title of the webinar. If you have one, talk about it below. What are you teaching? If you don't have one, what would it be called? Again, think about your software and the problem it solves and how you could teach something aligned with that problem. For them to do it manually, leave that below. I can't wait to read your answers. I hope this video finds you incredibly well, and I'll see you next Monday. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel for other marketing and software related videos. Also, I'd encourage you to join my newsletter to receive private invites to events, exclusive contests, and other free training. And if you're ready to keep going, I got 2 videos queued up for you. I will see you next Monday.